Welcome back, everyone. We're thinking about post-pandemic teaching, and we know that a lot of discussion about post-pandemic teaching has focused on the negative outcomes, but we're here to explain why that's not the case 3 years later. So I'm Candace.
I am Katie.
And let's get started. So I kind of want to reflect a little bit before we start. And 3 years ago, we shut down. At this point, 3 years ago, we were like 2 months in to the pandemic, right?
Wild.
So when we stopped, it was kind of like we're trying to figure things out day by day. And I don't know what your district did.
It was hour by hour there for a little while.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd start the day and after the first session, something was totally different.
Yeah. And a lot of like our Zoom, since our kids didn't have one-to-one devices, so we couldn't require them to log into Zoom. And
Right.
so we just kind of had like optional Zooms. So a lot of kids in March that year, their school year ended, you know? I did like a book club with my students because we were reading a book and then they're like, well, we want to read the second one in the series. So then I did an optional book club for like 3 or 4 kids. It wasn't that many, but I was like, okay, we're all here, we're at home alone.
That was gosh, it's weird as we're talking because I'm like, it feels like this dream. Like I know I lived it and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And then as we're talking about it, I was like, oh, I got to teach in person this year with no masks and no barriers and no cohorts and no spacing.
It
And
was the first year since then, right?
yes, this
Because
was our
masks weren't
first year.
required.
This was our first year. This school year was masks weren't required and we didn't have to have any 6 feet dividers. But after 2 years of doing that and we were working on building this huge community at my site. And then COVID happened and it was like, nope, you have to stay in your little pod and you have to stay in your little pod and you have to stay in your little pod. And this was the first year that we were like, oh, wait, we can pass each other in the hallway and we don't have to coordinate when we do laps outside or when you do laps outside. There was just so that sense of community has kind of taken the forefront of my mind, which is what we want. But it's odd that thinking back going, the amount of, well, I guess a positive here. One of the fond memories I have is I got to know families on such a personal, intimate level. With my population of students, they couldn't be on the computer if they didn't have assistants getting on the computer, turning things on, keeping things going. And at first I was like, I don't want families to watch me teach. Like that's like I'm doing fine doing my gig in front of my people, but I don't want mom to be sitting over here in the corner listening to everything I said. And by the end of the year, some of my students that I thought would struggle the most on Zoom because their parents saw what we were trying to do ended up being the most engaged and made the most they made the most of the situation at what it was. So that's something it's weird thinking back to it.
It is. And I think back like what was it, like 6 months ago? Costco, I think, was the last holdout for the barriers at the cash register. And, they were removed from like every other store that I went to, but Costco was like, nope, we're going to keep that barrier up. But then one day I went and they were gone. And it was so weird. I was like, oh, I'm too close to people right now. Put that back up.
Yes.
We're like breathing on each other.
I think the weirdest thing for me was this year also when I went in to the doctor's office and they had masks at the door. For the last 3 years. And then I go in and the mask stand was gone. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm talking to people and actually being able to see their faces like this. Like, we didn't have face-to-face interaction unless it was like we're doing right now for several years. And I didn't know, like I used to wear a ton of jewelry. I did my makeup, and through the pandemic, I think that's something else I learned because I couldn't wear my mask and my jewelry. And
so it's hard.
It would get caught. And so I thought, yep, I'm not doing it. And that's something that I'm still kind of all natural because I'm not quite back into, you could only see this part of my face. So no, it's interesting to reflect on some of those things that there were some good things that came out of it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So then I'm kind of thinking like we went from regular teaching to this, like everything is different. And we've kind of gradually gotten back. but we've learned so many lessons along the way. So we created this video where I went around and I asked teachers at my school site on the last day of school, like the checkout day of school. So it was just kind of like catching people in the hallway or finding them and say, hey, you want to be in the video? And so ask them what they saw or what they thought were positives. And it was kind of interesting what they said. So I'm going to share that.
I'm really interested to see what people watching this, what you think, because something positive. So
That's
yeah,
kind of a hard, yeah. Some of the
let's
people I asked are like, I need a minute to think about that. I don't know. Positive? Yeah, there's a lot that we can think of that was difficult, right? So I know that I've had a lot of conversations with teachers about, learning loss. That's the biggest one.
I think as teachers, that's what we're always looking at is what can we improve? What can we improve? What can we improve? But this is definitely some stuff that we've reflected on. So I'm curious. I'd love to hear what people, after you guys see this, what you see in your life, whether you're a lunch lady or a support staff or an office person in the school, because everything changed. So let's start with the most obvious.
Yeah, I mean, lunches alone changed, right? Yeah. We're like picking it up at school and oh my gosh. Okay. So I think Matthew had the best reaction to this question.
Something good that's come from the pandemic in the last 3 years.
Positive? Oh, let's see. Something good.
It's okay. We're all kind of there, right?
That exactly. When we were talking about this before this video to share with everybody, like, come on, our teachers, we care, and we're trying to flip that paradigm of focusing on the positive and focusing on, yeah, things are really difficult, but what is something good? And that face that he made is exactly how it felt. Like, I'm sure I can think of something. So that was a good.
There has to be something.
There has to be something. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like all of the apathy in the classrooms, and we're trying to like get kids back into the routine, and they don't care what to do. Yeah,
there's another person right here. That's the biggest thing that changes. Like, you are in my space when we work with students. It's very
in my bubble.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the disengagement and getting them back into, they kind of were able to check out pretty easily with online learning. And I feel like the older they got, the easier it was for them to get away with it.
Before we started recording, I was joking that my picture was from a few years ago. I haven't changed it yet. And I feel like this is a great example. This would happen, and then this would happen.
Yes. And then you're muted. There were a lot of mutes.
Exactly. And now it's like, sorry, you can't mute me, like, or yourself. We need to have that interaction.
Yeah. I mean, some days in the classroom, you kind of wish you had that.
I may have said it a few times this year. Like, this is definitely different when I just can't keep teaching. Like, that's
right. We're done. Okay, now you listen to me. Yep. We can't do that anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we kind of dealt with that we didn't anticipate. And then,
I remember teaching people how to mute.
Do
you remember that? Like, that was such a foreign concept.
Yeah, I had one kid that would come on every single day and tell a story about some random thing that was going on, or like an argument they were having with their sibling. And I was like, okay, you're coming in late, and then you can tell me later. Go ahead and mute.
There's another positive, as we're talking about right now, with both of us having families around us and finding a quiet place to have those conversations. We all got really good at that during the pandemic. I got to know animals. I mean, there were
birds, animals, right?
Birds and dogs and fish, and I think there was a turtle, and there was a little bird. He was a little bird. I don't know what kind of bird, because I haven't ever had birds, but he would fly in and perch himself on my student. And so then we would all stop and say hello to the bird, but it was so fun because the engagement of, oh, well, let me show you my animal, or let me show you this, or, hey, I have a stuffed animal. I don't have a live one, but this is, and just that that human connection that we were still able to have
Mhm.
on the screen, that reminded me of that with the animals.
On a
Something-
on a much different level, right?
Oh, totally different. Because that's
Yeah, it's so personal to be, you were like in their space, like we saw their bedrooms and we
Right.
saw like their family and
right. And
animals.
siblings coming in behind the background and going, oh my bad, sorry, but it was real. It was so authentic. There wasn't a I don't know, the pretense that we had before that. It was like, well, here's what you got. Whether that's what you want or not, here's what you got. And I think that taking that, I keep doing this of like that, like just a chip like coming off, like everybody's like, oh yeah, you're real too. Oh wait, you
Yeah.
have disagreements. Oh, you have stuff happening behind the scenes, and it's not always this
Mhm.
this nice
Yeah.
little thing.
Right? No, things are not like that. We yeah, we kind of had that human, seeing each other eye to eye, like we're all in the same place together and we're all seeing the same stuff.
Candace, you just made me think of something else. I'm so glad we're having this conversation and focusing on the positive, because we are so good at finding all of the, oh my gosh, what we've been through. And I just caught myself smiling when you said that. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
See, again, life. Nope.
Right?
I am still not super tech savvy. Anyone who knows me knows that I know just enough to get myself in trouble and to make things work, but it's not something it's
I thought you were gonna say make things worse.
well, that too. But I would struggle, or something would freeze, or I would bring up a link and it didn't work. And I remember one of my students, so I go by Miss Katie instead of my last name, because I got married right before the pandemic, didn't want to teach my last name. That's a whole nother story. So let's just,
yeah.
it was Katie. We're good. But one of my students who did not engage, I guess very much would be the best way to put it, would lean in and go, you got it, Miss Katie. It's okay. You got it.
Oh, that's
You
so
got it.
cute.
You got it. And I would have this like pep talk. So that whenever I struggled with the technology, I would get this like, you got it. It's okay. It's okay. And that was, to me, was just like this empathy that I didn't know some of these students were able to demonstrate when they saw me struggling, genuinely struggling. They were so much more patient with, oh, Miss Katie doesn't know all the answers. She's not this, sage on the stage, as they say. It's the let's figure this out together. And that was such a huge it's okay to make mistakes type of thing. So when you said that, it just brought that. I hope that as we're talking, as people are watching this, they're like, oh yeah, I remember this good thing that happened, or that good thing that happened. Because so often when we talk about the pandemic, it is like there's a bad taste.
Right. I know. And if you're feeling like some of this is, resonating with you, leave a comment.
Yeah,
So
share with us.
Interact with you, share. We would love to know, because, we're both in the same state, and I'm sure the experience was different in a lot of others. I know California was like a holdout for going back in person and all of that, where other states were much different. My daughter's friend moved to Texas, like, I think they were in first grade. The shut down when she was in kindergarten. So they hadn't gone back yet. And it was like optional in person, or you could stay on Zoom like the second half of the school year in California. And her friend moved to Texas, and when she got there, it was like all in, like everybody's in the classroom, and it was so strange to think that like she went from this experience to something completely different in like a matter of weeks.
I felt like last year that was the case a lot of places, because I have friends in Tennessee, Virginia, Georgia, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and all of them were like, oh, we're just back. Okay. And
we're
so
like, we still have masks.
Depending on where we are and what that looks like, I'd be interested to have that conversation too, and find out how that looked and what we all learned from our different geographical areas too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's see what else our next one here.
2023.
I'm gonna go ahead and
after
skip
the
ahead.
pandemic.
And actually, I'm gonna link the video in the comments below, so that if you want to watch like everything all together, where it's not kind of split up.
You do have beautiful eyes in that photo, though. I'm just saying. What a great freeze frame.
It was the overcast weather. They just kind of reflect. Okay. Oh, all right. Here we go. We're gonna start right here.
To be honest, bad breath is way down. Like halitosis used to be a really common problem in middle school because they don't know how hygiene works. But now they can smell themselves with their masks on. So Hey, dental hygiene.
I love how he says they don't know how
Hygiene works.
hygiene works. I work in a middle school and this is one of my coworkers, and yeah, they don't know how hygiene works, especially in middle school.
So see, there's a perk. There was
Right? You know, there's a positive there. We kind of, I think, became more self-aware in a lot of ways, right? I mean,
and you know what, honestly, I
in
hadn't
funny
thought
ways,
of that. But I hadn't thought of that as much because for me, it felt like I'm such an animated teacher, and it's important for me to see the whole face when I'm communicating with my students. And so for me, it was literally like closing off half their personality. And
Yeah.
so to look at the flip of like, well, their hygiene improved was actually really like, that was actually good for me to hear, because I'm like, oh, that was the worst part of it, is I couldn't see my students'
it's a
faces.
mask, right? And then
Yeah.
the kids like came to school without their mask. You didn't recognize them.
It was
It's like,
it
wait,
took a
put
minute.
your hand like this. Oh, that's who you are.
And it's wild, but I'm like, yeah. So I loved as silly as it is, the perspective of like, oh yeah, hygiene was definitely a positive from that experience. I can lean on that.
Right? I mean, yeah, anytime you can get better hygiene from kids, middle school kids especially.
And you don't have mono, but you do have halitosis.
Dental hygiene is important.
But seriously,
Okay, so something positive that came out of this pandemic. I think definitely the spotlight on mental health in general, and the overall growing acceptance of the need for mental health and services and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you have to mazz out before you can bloom, right?
he gave us a time.
Oh, I love that. You have to
Right?
before you can bloom, for the teachers out there. Like, oh,
That's putting it such a great way.
I love that.
Yeah. So mental health services, I know that like within my district, they placed, we call it an outreach consultant at every school site. And so they're able to like meet with complete SSTs and meet with families and get services. And
That's
it's one
awesome.
person whose job is dedicated to that, where before that was put on the counselors. So
That's
it's like,
awesome.
yeah.
Is
And-
that something that is carrying over post?
Yeah. So we've had our outreach consultant in place. This is her second year. I think she started when I started instructional coaching. I think we started the same year. And yeah, it's still in place. And I think our district extended it for a few more years. So we have it at least 2 or 3 more years in addition to all that. And she is busy because as we know, like a lot of families.
That's a full-time job for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, mental health services. What does it look like in your district?
Right now, my district as a whole, I actually can't say much on, because I'm not an instructional coach this year. I have been in the classroom doing the treading water like everybody else. And so I know my little pocket. So that's actually something I would like to reach out to some of our district folks that I won't name drop right now because I haven't talked to them yet, but there are some people that I work with that know what's going on at every site, and that it's a lot. I know it's a lot, but I can't give you details. So maybe we can follow up in another video with my team and go more in depth on that.
Yeah. And then I also think about like our emphasis on SEL as
that's
requirement.
And that's been a huge shift, which is good.
Yeah.
But there's also this boundary of like, okay, but my plate again, I'm trying
What?
to
I know.
Would you like me to
I
have?
know.
Okay.
And then like, how far do we go with these conversations?
And that's why we're having these conversations, because I don't think anyone knows, but
yeah. And that's another thing that like we learned on the spot, like, okay, how, we always get to know our kids, and we always have just discussions if there's a conflict that comes up, like, okay, this is what we do in this situation. But as far as like getting ahead of that, like you might experience this, so this is what we can do, or, any of those SEL related discussions.
And I think the proactive piece versus the reactive piece has really shifted of things to notice and to do something about before it's
too late.
Right.
Yeah. Before it gets worse. And I know that like in our state, it's requirement that we have so many minutes a week. And so districts have done it differently. Our school, we have like an extended fourth period. So it's extended for 20 minutes. And in that time, every day, the kids receive their SEL instruction. But other districts have done it differently. Like my kids' schools are very different from that. And it's I like that it's flexible.
I love that. And I'm also very curious about that because from my experience during the pandemic, I'm an adult transition program teacher. So we have one group the whole time. And we don't have shared classes and that kind of thing because we're out in the real world, if you will. And that for me, that part of it has been really, really, I'm so grateful for businesses that will work with us because for 2.5 years, we couldn't do our curriculum. We couldn't do job coaching. We couldn't go to the stores and make things in the kitchen. There was so many restrictions. And so for me, that SEL part of my field is we're doing things together again. We're able to build relationships with businesses. So I'm actually really like, I'm looking almost like in the comment section now. Like I want to know what everyone's districts are doing, what classrooms are doing, and the perspective of someone like me who isn't at where you're seeing everything. Like I used to be an instructional coach about 10 years ago, and I loved the year that I was an instructional coach because it gave me such amazing perspective where you can hear and take and go. And so, there's more to come from this.
Yeah. So please let us know in the comments, like what does SEL look like or mental health services at your school site or within your district? Because I know I am really amazed at how well my district has gotten ahead of it. But in addition to that, like society in general has become more aware. Getting in to receive mental health services has gotten a little bit easier, even though there's so many more people that need it. I feel like it's more available.
It feels like the process isn't a secret anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, it was, yes, we have help, but you had to know the right way to get to it. And now it's more available. I'm looking at, and this is another one of your colleagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we were just looking at,
this is our counselor, actually.
I am so impressed with the middle school was weird for everyone behind him. I kept looking at that when you paused the video and I was like,
really awesome wall in his office with all these great quotes.
As like putting on my middle school mindset hat of what it was like when I was in middle school, so true. It was weird for everyone. I think as adults we forget that.
That's what I love about teaching middle school is it's just an awkward time, and watching the kids like navigate that and then come out of it and find who they are is the most magical thing.
And that's why we're focusing on the positive, because it is magical. As corny and cliche as that sounds, it's so magical. And and the other one I was noticing on this as we were talking, so shout out to this person I have not met in person, but I love the perspective of the Maslow before Bloom. And mistakes are proof that you are trying is the other quote on his wall as we paused and we were talking is, we're going to mess up. I do. And how powerful for our students, which is another thing that I think is a positive from when I had my little cheerleader helping me out with technology. It's okay. Before 2020, I don't want to say mistakes are encouraged. I don't know the word I'm going for here, but it's, hey, you tried. Great job. And there's this encouragement now of, well, if you mess up, then we fix it. We try again. Where before it was, if I mess up, there was this fear, this visceral, like I need to be perfect. And now it's, nope, everybody makes mistakes. And we all as a community, I feel as teachers and students in education, it's like, well, we're doing the best we can. And we can't always be the best, and to own that, I'm doing my best and I'm trying, but my best today may not be my best next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I love this wall. I want to go visit in person because I'm like, there's just some awesome positives right there.
Yeah, it is a beautiful wall. He does a great job. Okay,
health and
let's go
services
a little bit
and so
ahead.
So one positive,
Because at the end of the day, you have to Maslow before you can bloom, right?
it gave us a time to rest, even though there were really bad things happening.
So resting. I know some of my colleagues said they really got addicted to naps and to like take that time out to recognize that you need a break.
That is so powerful it's so simple.
Mhm,
Like looking back at that perspective of just that rest,
mhm.
because I could teach and be all on. Like my example of that for me, again, I haven't met this fabulous person either, but that's what she's saying that resonates with me
Yeah.
so much that I'm going to share my thoughts.
Right?
I would be on like this and I'd be teaching and I'd be in the moment and I'd be animated, I'd be all antic. And then when my teaching session was over, I could log off the computer and go,
Yeah. And you could take a break.
and I could breathe and reset emotionally, mentally, physically, eat something. And I think that's something that I've lost sight of this year with everyone back in person. And from the time they get off the bus to the time they get back on, I'm on
Mhm.
because there are things to be doing. And I have forgotten that.
It's okay to take a break.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm really bad about following that advice. I am not a napper. I could probably use a nap a lot of days, but I just won't do it.
Mine is even to pause to like eat.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
sit
at work
down.
for sure.
Yeah. To sit
Yeah.
down, one, and two, eat a meal.
Away from your desk.
Oh, I was just excited. I was
Which
sitting
I
down
am very
at my desk.
guilty of, especially in my role as an instructional coach. It's difficult to find a place for that because
Always something.
there is. And then I know like we're of course welcome to the teacher's lounge, but at the same time, like there's still a disconnect and I don't want to encroach on their space,
Mhm.
even though, we're teachers too. And we're, I don't know. It's just a weird
Sometimes-
place to be in.
Weird place. Okay, that we're saying the same thing. Guys, what do you think about this? Because mine is I want to have that minute to just connect with my colleagues who are my friends.
Yeah,
We don't get to see them during the day, but there's also that I find myself keep going like a deep breath when I was able to close the computer during
Mhm.
virtual teaching, that there isn't that. I need to be more intentional on,
Yeah.
okay, I finished this. I'm allowed to take a deep breath and sit down because I'm a total hypocrite when it comes to this. Is I tell my staff and other teachers and my students, you can't drive a car on an empty tank. You have to
Yeah.
stop and fuel up. And
Right.
I'm puttering along. And so I think that's a great reminder of like, oh yeah, we did rest because we had to. We were forced to.
We were forced to. We couldn't
And-
go anywhere or do anything.
And now it's like, okay, I need to make sure that I don't forget what I learned during that time and take a break.
Yeah.
That's
for
powerful.
Yeah. Great advice.
So one positive thing that came out of the pandemic, I would say, is resiliency with kiddos. So that was something that we really had to teach them how to overcome and work through trials and failures. So that growth mindset, that resiliency is something that I really see with our students, and they are learning through struggle, which will help them be stronger adults in the future.
Okay. So this one, go ahead.
That resiliency word is such a tough one for me.
Mhm.
It is so double-edged sharpness. So absolutely, I believe, and I love her shirt too. But I
Isn't that a nice shirt?
it's great. I think it's so important of, yes, we can be resilient, but for me, it's okay, I was resilient and coming back from that, I want to dig deeper into that word of resiliency, because for some it's absolutely, we taught them resiliency, but now we're back in person and I feel like the resiliency is almost too good, if that makes sense.
What do you mean by that?
And how I'm wording on is there's this very fine line of being resilient and being apathetic. I'm so good at bouncing back that when we're in person, I feel like I've witnessed this for some, not all, for some, is that we have to teach them, like she was saying, we have to teach them these processes. I feel like I have to teach some of these students how to interact in person, face to face.
Oh, yeah.
To where they'll just, and to say, hey, just like everyone on this video so far has said, of like, hey, I see you. I'm here for you. You're here. I want to make sure that, I don't know why that word, I hate saying the word trigger because that's a whole nother video, but I don't know, something just, Candace, you're also good at translating what I'm trying to say. Can you help me try to translate what I'm talking about with resilient? Because we absolutely have taught them to be resilient.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's so much more that we need to teach them in doing that. But at the same time, they're really great lessons that we were never pushed to do in the first place.
There it is. See, you're so good. Is yes, focus
Like-
on got you. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Because what she said is spot on. And I find myself going, okay, that's totally a positive. And this is proof of why we're doing this. I just realized in that moment, I was like, yeah, that's a positive, but, and I flipped and was going to start reanalyzing and doing things like we're trying to get out of the habit of doing. And I just did it literally on the video that we're doing to tell people not to do that.
Right? I know.
In the moment.
And, well, I mean, you think
So-
about our kids, we always kind of talk with our colleagues about the shutdown was like so harmful to kids of this age or that age, or, you know, like I said earlier, my daughter was in kindergarten when it shut down. Then she was online for all of first grade until like maybe the last 4 weeks, where she would go like 2 or 3 times a week for like 3 hours. And then second grade, she like went back with masks and everything. And so I'm thinking, like, as an educator and as a mom, those 3 years in education are so vital to not just education itself, but social skills completely
For everyone.
for everyone. But then you
Everyone.
also think like our 8th graders this year, where let's see, they would have been shut down in 5th grade, if I'm doing that right, and then 6th grade online. And some of them came back, but like at our school, we didn't have very many kids come back. My classes that year, there was maybe 3 that came back while everyone else stayed on Zoom for those last like 8 weeks of the year. So it wasn't that many. And then 7th grade, they're back with masks. So like they missed 6th and 7th grade or 5th and 6th grade. And
That's
that's really an important time.
It's not just kindergarten, it's that middle school stage that we were just talking about. And then, they're in high school, they're learning these social, how to be an
Right,
adult.
like,
And so
If they're freshmen, like they're missing 9th or the end of 9th and all of 10th and part of 11th, you know, like that's really important too.
every single
third grade.
year.
There wasn't a good time.
No,
Yes.
that's what I was going to go to. There are pivotal learning moments in every single year. And I think for your colleague that is on the screen now, that's what she was trying to capture. And I was so focused on the yeah, but that I find myself doing. So rewind that is yes, you're able to be resilient no matter how old, no matter what grade, from kindergarten through senior year, and be able to overcome that. And I think that's where my butt came in of like, okay, they're back now.
Right. And I feel
And how can we
3
build
years-
on that?
yeah, 3 years later, we're getting back to normalcy, and the kids, like, they're showing major growth everywhere. Like every single time we had a benchmark this year, we had a massive amount of students who showed growth. And that, like, they're bouncing back from this, and that's amazing.
And that's the resiliency piece
Mhm. Yeah.
of I had to check myself because I like everyone else is like, yeah, I hear ya. But, and I think of all these things that we're still overcoming. And I think
Right.
that
And
is
we're not going to overcome it quickly.
right. And I
It
feel like
was a huge step back.
that's kind of the challenge that I think we're offering everyone too, is what I just went through organically on the screen with everyone is owning that, yeah, there's but we can focus on what we've learned and the positive and grow from that, and not be, well, let's fix this and let's fix this and let's fix this. So
We can't
shout
fix
out to this
it all.
person because she's spot on.
Yeah, well, she's pretty awesome. So, okay, let's.
One thing that came out of the pandemic is more of the awareness of building relationships, especially as a classroom teacher. It's been part of our job is engaging with the students, building those relationships. But the pandemic made it clear how important our job is to connect with the students.
So yeah, I mean, we talked about building relationships, but I love that last part. where he said it made it really clear how important our job is.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know, I kind of loved that about where we got some really good like understanding, and we were really appreciated for that amount of time. And I think it highlighted a lot of great things in teaching and also some difficult pieces as well. So I don't know, that's kind of, you know,
going back to the video before that, though, it all ties in. I love getting to talk and hear from all of these very unique, different experiences, because the underlying is, yeah, it was about relationships. We're not supposed to be isolated. This working together piece, and that's what he said. It did bring it to the forefront.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I think that's.
I mean, relationships. That's what, you know, everything. You can't teach a student without having a solid relationship with them where they trust you and they feel supported by you. So that even more on Zoom, like we had to try even harder to build those relationships. And when we're coming out and everybody's in masks and, you know, attendance is really poor, you have to work even harder to do that and to make them feel valued and let them know that you want them there and you miss them when they're gone, and that attendance is important for so many different reasons. But that relationship is, of course, it's always been important.
The realization, I like you just nailed it again. It's always been important, but I feel like there were always these, yes, I love you, I care about you, you're wonderful. Now let's get to this. Now let's get to that. Let's get to this. And I think it really kind of paused everyone of, no, there isn't a let's get to this or that or the other. If you're okay, we're okay, then we can build on that. I think that he captured that absolutely beautifully.
Yeah, exactly. Like we kind of had to slow down and really see what's most important. And it's, you know, those relationships with, whether it be student and teacher or teacher and parent or teacher to teacher or administration, like all of the relationships that you have are just, you can't be successful.
Every single one is imperative in to make things be successful.
Yeah. And to like keep you mentally stable.
Accurate.
Mentally capable. Okay, so let's see.
Something good that I've noticed since the return from the pandemic is resiliency in our faculty and staff, as well as our students. I've noticed an increase in concern of mental health for our students and the importance of teaching to the whole child, not just academics.
Yeah, teaching to the whole child, that's kind of what stood out for me.
Same.
Yeah. You know, we're seeing not just their test scores or their, you know, reading ability or their grade in class, but we're looking at, wait, okay, you're struggling academically, but why? And we're kind of pushed to think a little bit deeper.
Yeah, we've been pushed to go a lot deeper because the conversation is also, for me, and there's been a few teachers now or staff people, because I'm not sure if their role is teachers, but different people in the school that have commented on all of those components, where I think as teachers, again, speaking for myself, is I'm guilty of putting so much energy into my students and then forgetting that, oh yeah, we're human too. Just like the lunch break. Yep, it's important to pause and eat, but it's important to remember that we also need that whole piece, and that it's important we discover things outside of those connections. Does that?
Yeah. No, I mean, it made us self-aware of like what we really need to value and, you know, to move on and to be successful. That is actually our outreach consultant. She's amazing. She works with the kids and the families, and
so that connecting piece makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay, so let's see.
I think something positive that's come from the last 3 years is that our families and students have been pushed a little more to use technology, and it's made it easier for us in the front office for them to enroll and for them to attend meetings. It makes it a little bit easier to join and be present in their students' lives.
I love Well, I always kind of like that last line that everybody says. They have a great ending. But that being present, and we have these new ways of doing that and to communicate, and parents had to figure out a lot of things. I love the videos that people put together, and they come up with all these crazy words for all the different things we used, and they make me laugh so much because that's totally what it was like, where you're trying to figure out 15 different programs just to get your kids to learn. But I don't know. I mean, we all did it. We all made it work. And that's amazing. We were forced to do it. But but yeah, that worked out.
Something that I was thinking of is as we were talking and going through and focusing on the positive, it brought me back because I kind of avoid Zoom unless it's fabulous people, because this is something that's great that's come from being off. Is the doorbell rang and I had family members come in the next room, and I was like, I'm on this really important thing that we just got done talking about. But something that is so great is, Candace, we don't live in the same city.
No.
We're far apart, and to be able to still have these conversations with you and build our Flare community and have these amazingly valuable conversations and build these relationships are proof of something that without going through what we've been through, we wouldn't have been able to do that. Something that I've noticed off of what she said was, specifically for me, IEP meetings have changed totally. Because if someone couldn't attend in person before the pandemic, we just canceled. We had to reschedule. Everyone had to be there. And now I have people like our speech therapist, our nurse, our physical therapist, our occupational therapist, all of those ancillary services that are, again, like we just said, pivotal and critical in the relationships of teaching that whole child what they need. They work at numerous schools. And how do they set these times up to where they can be in these meetings at 4 different school sites and still do their job? Well, now it's, hey, I can log in, and now all of my meetings are hybrid, because I personally like being in person when the parents can come and sit with me, and then we can have people share their components on the screen and then log back out. That has been a game changer that would not have been possible with. So that was something that she actually said that just talked about the front office with parents and teachers getting out of their comfort zone. Is it kind of forced us all to be like, okay, well, the point is we need to meet and we need to discuss the amazing things that's going on with this student. Tell us about your son or daughter. How do we meet these needs? And now being in the same room isn't a requirement.
No, we have a lot more flexibility.
And so that's what resonated for me when she said that. If that's just,
I mean, as a parent, I can have a meeting with my child's teacher in the middle of the day. And it works. Like, I don't have to require for them, or ask for them to stay late so that I can make it there after work. But, on their break or right after school, we can just log in.
It's benefited across the board in ways that I didn't realize how much we needed that before, because we'd always done it, this certain way.
Because we'd always done it that way. That's the biggest piece. Like, we'd always done so many things this way and not even thought that there was a better way.
Right. And we've proven that, because we had to, again, it was
we're forced.
We didn't go willingly, but given the opportunity, that's absolutely a positive from this experience. I'm so glad that the front office person that we're being able to hear from, I did not think of that. Before this discussion and watching her. So that's awesome.
I think we're finally starting to recognize that all behavior is not just behavior, but the result of mental difficulties and things that students actually need and want help with.
This is a big one.
Communication. Behavior is communication. That's something in my field that I say all the time. But I think it's become so much more prevalent and obvious, if that makes sense, because everybody's like, oh yeah, it's real. She spot on. That's huge.
It's so much more, obvious, but it's also something that people are more aware of.
Well, that's what I mean by obvious, is it should have been obvious all along.
It should have been.
But because of this experience, that's definitely a positive that has come out of that is now it's, oh, okay,
Yeah.
because we know those components. We've lived it.
Right. And that's always been kind of like at the back of our mind, I think, you know, when we have a student who's misbehaving like consistently, and then we always think, oh, well, you know, I don't know, there could be something else. But I don't think we ever looked as deeply as we do now.
I don't think, and it wasn't because we didn't want to, it was the shift in the focus was so different.
Mhm.
So sorry that XYZ happened to you, but you still need to do blah, blah, blah.
Right. And that, you know, that kind of comes back to resilience, right?
It totally loops
Where
back.
we're
Absolutely.
teaching them all of the, like, these things are terrible. I'm so sorry that you had to live through it, or you had to deal with it, or that we don't have the solution yet for you. But let's work on it, and let's find a way to be stronger because of it.
I think that's the definition, going back in our conversation earlier, that I needed to hear from this whole experience today is, yeah, it happened. And there are bad things that did happen, but look at all of the positives that just this conversation and you and I meeting today to go over and talk to these people. I cannot wait to talk to my team and ask them these questions, because it's such a shift to change your mindset on, yeah, it was tough, but exactly like she just said, it's all the things, it's all doable. It's just, this has been a really, really, really amazing. Hope that everybody that's with us watching this is having these self-reflection moments as well, because I'm doing this live with all of you, but it's powerful, and I can't wait to hear about more perspective on what people are
the positive thing that came post-pandemic, in my opinion, is that we're more aware of our self-care. We're also more aware of others and the needs of others, what other people need, and I feel like we close the gap in our differences. So we are more tolerant of others and other things that we normally wouldn't have been if we're not post-pandemic.
I love her. I don't know her and I've never met her, but I love her.
Yeah. Self-care. That is not something that I heard as much as I hear now. You know, and especially as teachers, we are just giving people, and we want to put others first, and we want to make sure everybody has what they need. And it's really, really easy to forget what you need.
Like eating lunch.
Like eating lunch. Like leaving your desk. Getting outside and taking a walk. Like all these little things that we need to do more of. And I don't know, it's kind of pushed us to be more aware of it. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Self-care. I was saying certain things like, oh, next week I have to do this, this, and this. And this is my first week of summer, this coming week. And so I work in an office with 3 other people. And so I would be like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to make this work for, Wednesday. I have this training and I have this appointment that I had scheduled and I didn't know. And she's like, self-care. Choose what you need to do and what you're comfortable. You don't have to do it all.
and how powerful for us to be that reminder for each other.
Right.
Because like they did that for you, you do that for me. I have colleagues that do that for me and I am able to help them. But for some reason, that goes back to that resiliency and the teamwork and the camaraderie and working together to realize that you're more than just this little box.
Yeah, exactly. You're more self-aware, I guess.
Able to think introspectively on what things I want to learn and what to work on. Being well rested and discovering new things. For me, discovering the joy of gardening has really helped me and have like a good positive outlook and focusing on things that you want to learn and applying them. That's been a good outcome from the program.
Man, he sure has a positive outlook on life.
That learning new things, and I think a lot of people came out of it with new hobbies or skills or appreciation for skills that they tried that didn't go so well.
I tried a lot of new things. Some stayed with me and I continued doing others. I was like, okay. That's so powerful. What's something that you discovered maybe during that time that you had that time?
Okay, so 2020, I bought a Cricut.
Oh, the crafty world.
That was my favorite purchase from that time. But I don't know. I got my husband got me a harp for my birthday. I want to say 2021, I think. Because I'd always said that I want to play the harp. Like it's the most beautiful instrument. And it's always been like something where, oh, one day I want to do that. And so he, like, for my birthday, he got me a little Irish harp, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. And I am probably not super great at it, but I can play a few songs.
That's awesome.
And it's just fun to like have that. So like, music, or I always did a lot of gardening, but that kind of stuff. What about you?
For me, I have such a unique ancestry that I didn't know I had. I have lots of adoptions on both sides of my family. And so genetically, I wasn't ever sure what true part I was. Something that my husband did for me was got me one of the DNA tests, and I was able to go based on one of the DNA tests I got shortly before the pandemic hit. And I found relatives and cousins and family that I didn't know existed. And I was able to dive, and it was truly like 40-hour work weeks on the computer of, okay, we have this much of a connection and we have this much of a connection. And so it's been really cool. My family grew over the pandemic. And so afterwards, it's something that I would have never had time to do, to invest into. I always wanted to know what my heritage and my roots were. Yes, we used to debate about it of where all the possible pieces and come from.
Yeah.
But it's been really, really neat to look at pictures and connect with people that we have a similar great-great-grandparent that I didn't know existed before the pandemic. So that was mine. It was just to have the time to read and to learn about my own family history. I've never done that. And I'm in my 40s, but it was never something that, that'd be nice to do someday. That'd be really cool to figure out someday. And to be able to be like, oh yeah, we got some answers on this, was like a highlight. And I also, I don't want to say, well.
Oh no. Did you freeze?
Some things go better. You've always been a gardener. I am. Oh, I don't. Did I? Oh no.
Oh no, there you are. Hi.
Oh, no. I also bought a bread maker. Did I lose you? Sorry. I don't know when I lost, but so ancestry and personal history, and I also bought a bread maker. So
okay.
That was my highlight.
I love
I learned how to
bake. Yeah, I mean, we did a lot more cooking. A lot of that. My son took a cooking class online because it was his elective. So he did online cooking, online art class, online, a lot of things. But we got to like do that together, which was really cool. Where, I don't know, I think I might have enjoyed his art class more than he did. I'm like, oh, Julie, what project are we working on now?
We also got a lot of family game nights.
Yes.
Family that I feel like in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we just don't. And we made one of the funnest things we did was my husband's friends. They're all very techie, and we did an online game night where everybody logged in from their own houses and we played a game.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so much fun. We've all talked about like, we need to do that again, because there were different rooms on Zoom that people could go and chat if they didn't want to play that particular
That's so
game.
cool. I love that.
Was like, how do we find a creative way to be together? And mine was connecting with family, playing games with people that we used to hang out with, but we found a way to do it, and that I needed to learn how to bake.
Yeah.
So
we
there's
did.
a good takeaway.
Yeah, that reminds me, we did like movie nights. And so during like December, every night we watch a different Christmas movie, or, every night we do some like movie night. And I think that was my middle son's like favorite thing about that time. And we all did it. Like, I am really bad about not stopping or stopping. I don't know which way it goes, to just like sit and do something like that, because I'm always thinking like, oh, there's 15,000 things that other things I don't have time to watch a movie right now. But I did. I did have time. And that was like, I loved that. We were just all together watching a movie or playing a game or whatever. Like, it made us slow down. And I hope that as we continue on, we don't forget that and we continue to find those moments to slow down, because that's really what we need in our families and in our friendships and our communities and, you know, everything.
That one hit home. Just hearing the hey gardens, oh my gosh, like we're back in the hustle bustle again. And I want to pause and go, you know what? No, I do love everyone's children. I think as teachers we're like, yep, I'm never off duty. But I also can't lose sight of my own in my own house. And I think as teachers we need to be better at that, of carrying that from the pandemic to it's okay to clock out and invest that time.
It's okay to sit down and watch a movie, play a game, because my mom always says the house is always going to be there.
Amen.
Like, yeah, and your kids are not going to remember if the house was clean or dirty. They're going to remember like what you do.
Laundry can wait.
Yeah. It's going to get smellier and smellier, but it'll
still be there. And those
What
are
did I learn?
making memories for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That was
From the
like
pandemic on teaching is that some people can listen to the smoke detector beep for an entire school year. After 3 months of unmuting, there it is, still beeping. I, however, cannot let it beep for more than 40 seconds before I rip it out of the wall. That's what I learned.
I have a better appreciation of toilet paper.
Oh,
Toilet paper?
yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. I can't find it anywhere.
Target drive up.
Never even bothered to get out of the car.
I guess I don't have to do that anymore.
Being able to be at work with PJs all day and not having to dress up for work. So that was one of the highlights as well.
Oh, yeah.
Pajama pants and an Armani jacket.
Well, that's about comfort.
Everyone knew. No one cares.
Oh. My heart, from the serious to the in-depth to the emotional to the, oh yeah, pajama pants for the win. That is
right.
Great connection. Oh, that was so valuable. Candace, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Please share with us what, you know, what this brought to mind and where we are. I feel like we have come such a long way in the last 3 years, and we've come out of it much stronger because of our resilience and our, you know, attention to what we need in life and what we value
and what really matters, and because we care.
Exactly. Exactly. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment below. We'd love to continue the discussion with you. Ask us any questions or, you know, all those good things. Thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate that you are still in the classroom and that you are also remembering to care for yourself and your families and your friends, because we need to have those. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.